What is up, people? So today's gonna be actually a pretty short live stream. I'm not 100% on the panel yet. We'll see. But the main thing I wanted to do is I wanted to basically get a really good grasp, have everyone have a good grasp of what's going on, and realize that this whole geoengineering thing is a serious issue, and maybe open some eyes to what's going on, and so you guys can see what's coming up in the next couple months, really, and what's been going on for the past 20, 30 years. I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into it. What I wanted to do is I just kind of want to go over what this whole situation is, and what types of issues that, that I'm having with it, and then also, we'll go into the actual solutions that they want to use as in the geoengineering for climate control and or greenhouse gases. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start off, and we'll go to I want to show you guys. So what started this whole thing is the IPCC report. This came out about a year and a half ago, and basically this is a collection of 300 scientists, climate scientists around the world, who for the past 7 years were basically doing all the research they could to come up with this conclusion of what could happen if we continue to emit the same greenhouse gases and ignore the situation that's at hand, basically. A lot of you may already know, in the 80s, one of the biggest issues that we were facing when it comes to the climate would be the ozone layer. We had NASA had actually done some satellite imagery, and they had noticed there was actually a large hole in the ozone layer. And one of the reasons that this isn't so much talked about now is that they were able to set aside mandates that needed to be taken care of within their, like antifreeze, the stuff they use for the AC. All that stuff was changed under the Montreal Protocol. That basically said any of the aerosols that you guys are using for refrigerators, AC refrigeration units, needed to be a certain type of aerosol, so that way when it was released into the air, it wouldn't actually reach the ozone layer and do further damage. And with that treaty, luckily that the hole that was in the ozone layer has actually sealed itself. I know a lot of you guys probably won't be aren't really going to believe on all that about it, but the realization is that there is a layer that does protect us from a lot of shit, and that is the ozone layer. The ozone layer is actually going to play a really big part in this situation because, like the Montreal Protocol, we know that there are certain types of aerosols that are extremely hazardous to the ozone layer. One of which would be O3. O3 obviously it's an oxygen and these aerosol combinations or a sulfate combination that bonds with each other, and that actually does eat away at the ozone layer as well. But we'll get into that. So like I was saying, the IPCC, they came out with this report in 2017. Mind you, they had actually been doing these reports since the early 60s. Early 60s is when they started really putting out the warnings that, hey, this industry that we were producing all this oil, fossil fuels and cars and blah, 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 all those things were pretty much known. Everything they're talking about now within the global warming scheme, the climate change, all these things, these have been issues since the 60s. It was to the point where for a long time, the oil companies were doing more research into what was going on in setting these things forth. We'll get into that in another stream. Like I said, I kind of want to just brush through all these things and not get too deep into anything today. But like I said, the IPCC report basically is what the governments are all using as the main source. So everything you're hearing about the climate and global and the solar and all that stuff, they're pretty much all coming off of this. When we're looking at this, the main thing to remember, is the people that are presenting the facts that have been found. These people, they're just representatives, right? But yet they are held in high regards to the information that they're giving us, regardless of whether or not there's a other side. So when I say the other side, I'm talking, global, we climate change deniers. For myself, I would put myself in a situation where you would have to be completely just off the subject to even imagine that the industry and the cars and everything that we're doing isn't playing a factor in the climate, in the big scheme of things. It'd be ridiculous to think that. But on the other hand, especially for myself, I know that Earth has been here for a very, very long time. So the 180 years that we've been in an industry, I find it kind of hard to believe fully that we are the main issue for what's going on. I think it's just the cycles. I think we're going through another, climate change. It's exactly what it is, and we've seen it. We know it in the sediment layers when we do when we're doing all the geological studies and stuff. We know these CO2 levels and the climate change. We know this stuff has had these cycles over and over again. It's nothing new. So with that, the main crux of this IPCC report was that we needed to lower emissions. To be more specific about it, they wanted to lower emissions by 2030. They want to be down 45% down from where we are now. They want to be using 35% more renewable energy for electricity. Also, at the same time, they needed 7% more agricultural land actually destroyed to build what's called afforestation. It's or BIC. It's basically where they put these plots of trees to suck up CO2 and or bury the CO2 and have these trees cycle it. One of the big issues with that would be is just the timing. So it's not something that is going to work so much in the grand scheme of the timing we have. The IPCC has given us 13 years to get all these emissions down to zero by 2050. By 2030, they want us to be at the 45%. By 2050, we have to be at 0% emissions, and that will, in that perfect world, what will happen is the global temperature won't rise to 2 degrees Celsius. In their report, at 2 degrees Celsius, obviously a lot of the ice caps will melt, making most of the coastal cities probably gain about 10 to 15 feet of water. So pretty much most of the coastal cities will have to move inland more. With that, it will change the climate because obviously the ice caps will be different and the cycles, everything will just change, right? Be a lot slower. When we're really talking the big scheming things, when I'm looking into everything, we're talking 100 years, 200 years to when the climate would be screwed in that scenario. But like I said, they have given us the 13-year mark. The problem is that most people haven't heard of these people, the IPCC report, or the fact that they've actually been doing this research since the 60s. Every 20 years so far, or every 10, 15 years so far, what happens is the scientists will come out and say, we need to cut emissions. We need to lower the greenhouse gas the standards. We need to strengthen it. We need to tighten it up. And what ends up happening is obviously industry, the big money, fossil fuels, wants to obviously pump more and more as much as they can. And with that, it's money. So what, these fossil fuel companies were doing is they go in, they pump and run, get their money and take off. A lot of you guys also know we store pretty much all our oil here in the United States and buy it all overseas because it is cheaper to use basically. And again, mind you that these fossil fuel companies are getting subsidies and carbon kickbacks, which again we'll go into a little bit later on. So now that we kind of got a crux of where we're at, we got this IPCC report. We know that they are giving the governments a mandate for greenhouse gases and lowering emissions. For the next one, it's going to be we're going to go kind of just start running through the different types of the solutions that they want to run, more specifically CCS, carbon capture storage. So carbon capture storage is obviously it's a sequestering storage method of capturing CO2. Only difference is in this, what we're talking about now, is that it's not an actual method of capturing. It's what they're going to do with it. This is the big plan of governments that's pretty much been going on for the past 20 years. Obama actually recently, find that for you guys. So Obama actually recently passed, or he obviously wasn't recently, it was during his tenure. He developed a task force. And let me go ahead and get this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it as well. And most of these links will be in the description, and I'll add more to it after. There we go. So Obama, in 2010, Obama formed this task force basically to go out and study the effectiveness of capturing carbon dioxide in the ground. For those of you kind of still in the dark of what's going on, obviously fossil fuel companies, industry we'll call it, when they're pumping all their stacks and the engine and everything, all that smoke plumes that are coming out, that's all the greenhouse gases that are in our atmosphere. Well, what they have decided what they've figured out they can do is they can actually capture it using a scrubber system. Anyone who drives a big rig will know about this. This is the whole kits, exhaust kits that you're having to get. They're scrubbers. Well, they're doing these things in the industries, these big plants, and they're capturing most of the greenhouse gases that they are emitting. Perfect. So in this situation, what they'll do, an average plant will capture 1 million tons of CO2 per year, we'll say. What they'll do is they'll then capture it, transfer it to a site that is designated for storing the carbon and underground. What they'll do is then they pressurize it. It becomes a liquid, and then they will pump it to standards, which is about 1 mile to 2 miles underground, which is in this little illustration right here. So the effectiveness of this would be basically taking the carbon dioxide out of the sky or out of our atmosphere, pumping it low underground, and holding it for what they've estimated to be about 1,000 years is what they would think they can accomplish on it. Now, here's the issue, and I see you guys in the chat. I'm going to stop in a second, and I'm going to go through questions that I see out there. Once they've stored the carbon dioxide, the goal would be to completely seal it, keep it there. Here's the issue for carbon capture storage. They don't know how long carbon dioxide will stay underground. They have no idea. It's how long it will last before it can actually become dangerous. And what it takes, what storage assessments they would have to go through to make sure this isn't an issue. Issue being, and I talked about this last time I did some Geo Engineering conversation about it. In '86, not 86, early '90s, a lake in I think it was in Russia, basically had a carbon dioxide pocket underground. The pocket actually did release, and I think it was I don't want to say the number of the amount of CO2, but this pocket actually went through a village and literally killed about 1,200 people overnight. No one knew it was going to happen. No one could even knew it was going on when it was when the cloud was coming through. Couldn't see it. You don't see it, you don't smell it. So imagine if they're storing 2 to 3 million tons of this the carbon dioxide in the ground, and it springs a leak, or a pocket finds its way to the surface again. We're talking millions in danger. Now, when we're talking location, because obviously that would be a big factor in the how safe is this? Go ahead and find it right quick. Got a picture for you guys so you guys can see what it looks like. Task force. I'll make sure I find that guy for you guys. Hang on one second. All right. Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to show you guys now are the locations designated for it. Okay, so I'll show you guys real quick so you guys can see this one. So again, the carbon capture storage method goes now under 2 guides, where it'd be the storage that I have shown you guys, and then which is this one. The next one would be oil recovery. So where they liquefied the carbon dioxide and they're now transporting it, they can either go to a facility that will store it underground, or they will release it to an oil company. And the oil company will then use that liquefied CO2 to recover actually 60 to 80% more oil from a mine or from a well. Some of you who believe that an oil field replenishes itself, this is probably where that came from. And real, yes, Farmer's Boy, thank you very, very much. That is actually the exact location and the details on that, on the CO2 that killed the village. This, what we're looking at now, are also sites and facilities that will use it to recover more oil. When I say recover more oil, we're talking where an average plant was producing 400 barrels of oil per day. With this method of oil recovery with the CO2, they're actually producing 4,000 barrels per day, 1,000% increase per day with the oil recovery. And it doesn't take a genius to realize that if you're producing 1,000% more oil, how much more emissions is that oil will then produce down the road. So that in itself, to me personally, is an issue, because it doesn't make sense when we're talking cleaning emissions. Remember, we got 13 years. That is a very important guideline to this. Remember that this timeline that we have was given to us by the IPCC in the guides that we don't have time to BS, basically, right? So with that said, we're gonna move it along. Actually, I'm gonna go in the chat. If you have a question, go ahead and start asking now, and I'll get to it as I come down the list. I only saw a couple of them, so it won't take too long. And believe it or not, we are almost done. Again, like I said, I'm gonna make these geoengineering situations and streams. They're gonna be very short, very precise, and just so that there's no mixing around because I know I jump around a lot, guys, and for this situation, I'm gonna start getting a little bit more pinpoint on it. She says this going to create another smoking ban. No, well, actually, yeah, probably. You know, there's a lot of cities that are there's actually no smoke or zones in cities now, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna get worse and worse as we go. Let me see. How much carbon will that create? Let me see. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking that. If you can, Channel Q, if you're asking how much carbon the yeah, see, I'm not sure exactly which you're asking will do that. So maybe ask again, and I'll see it when I come back down. And yeah, like Farmer Boy was saying, Lake Nyosu, or I don't know, Cameron killed 1,700 or 1,746 people. Let me see. And yes, Crash, I'll be talking about that in a minute. See, okay, well, no real questions. Okay. Let's see. All right. So, yep, we're kind of just getting through. We're kind of running through. Why are you reading? No, well, I that's why I said if I was asking if you wanted to ask again. I didn't want to. I do apologize. I wasn't trying to. Sorry, channel. So since we're in the carbon capture phase of this right now, we'll kind of go into those methods that they're doing and the effectiveness of it. Because remember, the goal of everything we're going to be talking about right now is literally to lower emissions, and then we're going to go into the geoengineering aspect of it for solution wise. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Okay, so we went through. We already did the carbon capture storage, so now we understand that this is a facility where the carbon dioxide will be taken to. And yes, I realize that, channel. I should wait until I'm tagged. I get it. And then so basically, we're going to the next one, which will be the oil recovery, like I was saying. So this is same thing, same method of injecting it into the ground, but whereas they're not injecting it into a storage location, they're going to be injecting this into a well where it will actually pull the particles out of the walls and basically, like I said, produce 60 to 80% more oil recovery, which is realistically, it's in the millions when we're talking the money that they're making from doing this. Then here's a big one. This one is probably the biggest issue that I can tell when it comes to this whole situation. The third other storage option would be carbon capture, sequestration. So I'm gonna leave it because I was pretty close. So basically, what that is the exact same thing as carbon capture storage in the ground. Well, they realize that because what happens is the CO2 it's heavier, especially when you get into a denser pocket of itself. So what they're doing is they want to pump it into the deep waters, 30, 40, or 10,000 to 20,000 feet in these locations, and basically store it in the water. So because the CO2 separates from the water, it'll become a carbon sink is what they call it. They got this, and I'm not sure if anybody heard me talking about ocean fertilization, which we'll talk about because it's a geoengineering tactic. They noticed that phytoplankton actually absorbs the CO2 out of the air. And then once it dies, it then sinks to the bottom of the ocean. That's where they get the idea for the carbon sequestration. Ooh, I said it perfect. That's fine. Now, here's the main issue, because again, all that sounds good and all, but remember, the goal of this is to lower emissions. And remember, there is a target goal of emissions. It's not just lower. We have to get to a certain goal. Now, here's the biggest issue with this whole carbon capturing idea. Between capturing the carbon dioxide, transporting the carbon dioxide, injecting the carbon dioxide, and then if you're talking on the oil recovery, using it in all the industry machines used in that as well. We're not producing less out of this whole situation. So what we're looking at now is all the steps from capturing to storage to recovery, whatever they're doing, right? If in all that situation, they capture, and we'll say a rough number, 5 million tons of carbon dioxide is stored and or used for oil recovery. It took 6 million tons of carbon dioxide to actually do that, to actually get all that CO2 there, which means obviously we're working towards removing the CO2 while we're only producing more. That is part of the crux of the issue I have with what's going on with this, because if we're not reducing greenhouse gases, we're actually adding to it. But while that's going on, the fossil fuel companies that are producing these greenhouse gases are still making money on it. Yeah, so I mean, it's in the realm of it all, you're going to hear a lot about CO2 removal, carbon or direct air or direct carbon removal, direct carbon dioxide removal. I'm sorry. These are big plants. These are like big industry plants that will basically just suck air out of the atmosphere and scrub it. Let me see. So let's go to this next one I want to show you guys. So like I said, I want to go through just a quick list of the different types of geoengineering. I mainly wanted to do this one because I do get that I have a very biased view on geoengineering, and I wanted to make sure that I did preface that there are good ideas. So we're going to go over those real quick. So like I said, we're going to go through this list of geoengineering ideas they have. There's a lot of different names you're going to hear for these things over the next year or so. And I'll kind of, if I notice we're in one of those situations, I'll make sure you guys know what that is. The first one being probably the one you'll hear the most about. We're not going to get into the ethics of these things yet. We're not going to get into the people involved. Mind you, Bill Gates and a lot of other hedge fund guys are really, really backing these things. If you know of FEer, FEer has a lot to do with all this stuff we're looking at. So let's get into it. So solar radiation management, it's exactly what it is. It manages the amount of radiation that the sun emits that actually hits Earth. The issue is that the greenhouse gases is basically becoming so thick, in a sense, so dense, that it's slowing the rate that the radiation leaves, right? Thus meaning Earth is heating up. So what they've realized, or what they've come up with, is the fact that if the radiation doesn't hit Earth, then it can't heat Earth up, thus cooling Earth, obviously, right? Well, they didn't just imagine this would be a good idea. They had a reason to think that this may work. That reason being 1991, Mount Pinatubo erupted. If nobody knows about this, you may have been living under a rock. This was probably one of the largest eruptions that we modern humans have seen. This eruption created a geoengineering situation. And it was 100% documented. It's not like a crazy thing I'm saying right now. What they noticed is over a 3-year period, the ocean levels, the rise that was supposed to be happening in reports didn't happen. They noticed that the actual global temperature dropped half a Celsius in that 2-3 year period, and this actually reached out here into America, actually giving us actually a cooler summer at the time. So right off the bat, once they saw this, they knew that this was going to be a method. This could be a method of cooling or lowering the global temperature based on the fact that if you block the sun's radiation, the sun's rays can't hit Earth and won't be trapped and thus cooling it down. There's a downside. And scientists know this. And matter of fact, next stream I do this will be basically on what the climate scientists feel about geoengineering, and the steps they're taking to understand it, basically. So, like I said, 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption is the quote unquote brain. That's what they saw when they started brainstorming of how to solve this situation. So go back to here, and understand also solar radiation management isn't a method of geoengineering. It's a class of type of geoengineering. For instance, the one that I've been talking a lot about, Scope X, is this right here, stratospheric sulfur aerosols, climate engineering, which is another term that you'll hear. Geoengineering, climate engineering, and albedo enhancement or modification. That is all the same things. Solar radiation management. And this first one, like you guys probably heard me talk about this one the most. This one is what Scope X will be doing next month, or they'll be doing the testing for it next month. And there are two types of this method, SRM. There's the first one where what Harvard University David Keith will be doing will be the stratospheric aerosol spraying. So they'll be using sulfates to spray a blanket over everywhere, Earth, okay? And the problem with this is that, remember I was telling you about the Montreal Protocol, the one that banned gases that would be emitted and reach the ozone layer, producing that hole that we had. Well, sulfates, the ones that they're especially going to be using at the time, those ones actually will do the exact same thing. So there's then a problem they'll have. They can either have really, really tiny particles, but it won't reflect as much, and it'll linger longer. But it'll linger longer and less having to spray as much. But if the particles are too big, too thick, then it will drop to Earth too fast, and they'll have to do more spraying. So the actual amount of size of the particles, is the biggest issue when it comes down to that. Again, guys, if you guys have any questions, make sure you tag me so I don't read off your comments or anything like I did channel. Okay, so we can move on. And again, a lot of these methods, I'll let you know which ones that have actually been used or are being used today, because again, right after this, or halfway through here, actually, I'll be going through why this is an issue. Another method would be marine cloud brightening. This is another pretty popular one that they're discussing doing. Also one that unfortunately they've already started doing. This is kind of one of those ones that are under the radar. They don't talk about it too much because of the treaties that we have. But this one, the goal would be to brighten the clouds, thus making the clouds more reflective, and the radiation reflecting into space more reflecting into space. Excuse me, less heating. Issue with this one would be they don't know what. And of the geoengineering ones, this one to me, I'm still doing a lot of research into, but all they're really going to be doing is spraying actually the salt water that's there into the clouds. I guess the real factor in this one would be what will altering the cloud formations in the area do. So the next one would be cool roof. This one is a little different. This one is is what I would consider Not so much for now. Okay, what Barney's saying, are you pro or against this? What is your take? Should they be doing it? Okay, awesome. That's actually perfect. So we'll say geoengineering as a whole. I am for geoengineering. I know it's going to sound weird, but I am for it because there are methods and solutions that are actually wonderful, great ideas, and definitely things that we need to actually be talking about and working towards solving. For instance, we'll go back. So, solar radiation management, I'm against that. 100% against solar radiation management, as in the aerosol sprays. I don't want to get too deep into that one because that one is probably the main one I researched. So I have a lot of issues with it, and we'll be here all day if I did that one. So I'm going to designate one of these streams to solar radiation management, where I can just dig in deep and you guys can really see the issues. Just so you understand, this will probably take me, I'm saying 10 to 15 streams to get through the basics of everything. So just understand that's how much is going on right now. So when we're talking this reflective surface, I would say this one would be, it's not bad. It's not nothing wrong with this one, as in, risk factors. But it was not going to, remember, we have this 13-year goal that we have to reach, or 13 years and then lower emissions and tests and all that stuff in 13 years. This one will not do it. This one will take too long for its effects to be seen in the time we have. So we'll go back to the next one. Go back to my list. All right, space sunshades. We kind of know about that. That's the same guidelines as the space-based solar power idea that they've been having. This will basically just put these big ass panels in space, and it will block the sun. It will be like a man-made eclipse all the time. I don't really know much about this one. It's not feasible money wise, so I wouldn't do it. It's not a good idea in that goal or in that sense of it. Then the next one would be stratospheric particle injection for climate engineering. So this one is the same as SRM, solar radiation management, but instead of spraying it above above the ozone layer in the stratosphere, this one is a balloon that would be in our troposphere, right before we get to the ozone layer. And this one will do the same thing as the SRM, spraying sulfates or releasing sulfates. Issue with this one would be because it is in such low orbit, it will reach us. We will be breathing in these sulfates. The toxicity of them, it's not very good. It's not what you're going to want to hear. The reason they're going to get away with it is because they'll say the particles will be so small, and with the altitude that we are using, it will dissipate before it hits the land or hits our lungs in a sense. That too is another issue I have, because they don't know the size of the particle they need to do this effectively. There will be testing, and there will be ups and downs to figuring that out. And again, they will have to do field tests to do this. And with that, like I said, I was going to get into this real quick. The reason this is a huge issue for me personally, it's not even personal, it's just on a human level. We have treaties that are out. These treaties basically basically what they do is they stop these things from happening, and so that the risk factors don't affect us and destroy things left and right. For instance, we have the Biodiversity Treaty. This treaty is basically a worldwide treaty. Unfortunately, the United States and Canada are not, or no, I'm sorry, Mexico, I think I'm right, hang on. Germany, I'm sorry, are not part of this treaty. They are part of it, but they refuse to sign it, which means basically they're not going to get, it's a little harder for the UN to sanction them to when they do stuff. This is kind of the crux of why Scope X is becoming so public. They want it to look public so that they look like they're doing everything legit. Again, I told you, solar radiation management will have to be covered over the whole world. It's not just a certain area. The whole world needs to be done uniformly. This is big, right? Well, it's geoengineering. Well, the Biodiversity Treaty, it bans geoengineering because of the lack of research that we have, right? With that one, we also have, let me see, what did I just do? I pushed the wrong button. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so with that is we had the Montreal Treaty, the Montreal Protocol. That was the one for the ozone layer. Actually worked very successfully. The London Conservation and Protocol. This one was protecting the oceans from ocean fertilization. Here's the problem with that. Over the past 5 years, they have silently, but yet very rapidly decided that they can start reducing, or what do you call it, redesigning the wording in it. And basically what they're doing is they've now opened up ocean fertilization for quote unquote scientific research only. The problem is last year they dumped, it was in the range of 300,000 tons of iron into the ocean. For those of you who do not understand or don't know the base of what I'm saying is, ocean fertilization is a process of dumping iron into the ocean. I found a picture while I'm talking. Basically, what happens at this point, once they've done this with the iron, the phytoplankton, krill, those little whatever you call them. Basically, what they're doing is and this is an image of, this is the iron that they dump into the water right here. The phytoplankton will eat it, whatever they do with it. What it does is it excites them. It makes them produce a lot more of themselves, right? Basically, and what happens is the more of them there are, they call it a bloom. The more CO2 that they absorb, because the phytoplankton absorbs CO2 out of the air. They absorb it, it gets into the systems, they die roughly quickly, they don't have very long lives, and then they sink to the bottom, where then they basically sequester the CO2 themselves. The reason why they've decided they want to capture this method and then sequester it deeper waters is also because half the phytoplankton that does absorb the CO2 usually gets eaten by other fish and then released back into the air. It's just a carbon cycle. But this is a method of them exciting it. It's called a bloom. The downside would be with these the plankton blooms, we get red tides. If anyone knows what a red tide is is basically a virus, and this is very loose termed, but yeah, I'd say a virus or a disease that happens within the phytoplankton community, I guess. Basically, it's like a nature's way of saying there's too many of you guys. We got to kill some of you off. So what it ends up doing is acidification, or a large amount of acidification happens in the water. We end up getting dead zones, which is basically no ocean life will live in it. It's a big issue. If the oceans become acidificated, coral reefs die. Fish don't live, no aquatic life is there, period. That is actually a really big issue when it comes to the ocean fertilization. This is one of the geoengineering aspects that a lot of people are doing, or a lot of it is being done under wraps. This isn't public. They will tell you that it's all under a scientific guides, but if you go and look it up, all you gotta do is type ocean fertilization projects, and you'll see a list of 30 that have been being done over and over again over the past 40 years. Actually, right now, San Diego Birch Aquarium actually just sent a team of scientists out, and they've been testing this method for a while now. Yes, exactly. So you can find the algae blooms. I've done this. I did it before, and I don't want to really get too deep into this one, so I'm not going to really pull it up. I don't know where it's at in my files, but over that 30-year period, there has been a very high increase of red tides over the past 30 years, and it does correlate with the ocean fertilization that is happening. Okay, we'll go to this next one now. Again, with the treaties, we have the MMOD. Everyone should know what an MMOD is. It's basically the treaty that was set forth right after the Korean War, where we chemtrailed the military there. It's a treaty that basically says there is no weaponizing of the weather. Basically, you cannot use the weather or any means of altering the weather as a weapon. All right. Hey, what's up, Sequifine? How you doing, sir? So let's go ahead and end this a little bit more. So that's with the treaties. Okay, so we're going to be pretty done pretty soon. Kind of want to just go over this list right here, so you guys can get a good idea of what I'm talking about when we're talking good solutions and methods. And before I go through here, I got this list off of TED Talk. And I liked it because it gave me an opportunity to actually see a list of solutions being talked about. There are solutions on here. I'm not really too sure how it works or how to talk or get into it, so I'm going to be skipping a lot of them. But we're going to be pretty much almost. Let me go through 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to go through this list and then about 2 more Geo Engineering things, and we'll be done. Let's go through I want to do the list of Geo Engineering first. Let's get that out the way. Okay, so again, I'm going to just brush through a lot of these. Carbon dioxide removal is, again, it's the scrubbers that will be on an industry. I think there's a lot of there is a lot of what do you call it, a conflict of interest in regards to carbon dioxide removal and the SRM when it comes to David Keith, Bill Gates, and Harvard University. Next time I do this, I'll definitely get into that, because that's pretty much the next step. Because when we look at this carbon dioxide removal and direct air capture, now we're talking about David Keith and Bill Gates, who basically are business partners in a sense. This is Carbon Engineering. This is David Keith's his personal company. He basically is the guy you'll see him a lot. You're gonna hear his name and see him a lot in the next coming months. He's the one running ScopeX, the SRM field test that's gonna be going on in New Mexico. Yeah, he's the guy that owns that, and again, like I said, he's going to. What did I do that for? He's going to definitely be what they call a rich man. It's not going to be said, but you got to look deep. They're very aware of the fact that anybody who has a patent to any of this technology is going to basically be rich as all wonders once they start geoengineering. And one of the methods would be, again, carbon capture removal and direct air carbon removal. And that's what these guys right here. That's what this big plan is right here. But I'm kind of sidetracking right now, so just mind. I just wanted to tie in where the David Keith and the collusion of it is going on. Okay, yep, that's good. So the next other issue I want to talk about is the beginning of the scam, quote unquote. The stuff no one's talking about, stuff you really got to dig for to find, is this next the story right here. So again, it's not a secret that Donald Trump basically doesn't care for climate change at all. He thinks it's all a hoax. And and he's hired definitely a league of gentlemen, I guess you would call it. But this story came out recently, and it's a big scare. So let me make this clear: the reason geoengineering has all these treaties to stop it is because they don't know enough about it, and the risks of doing it are there. I have only talked about the specific risks per method so far, but those are little things. Those big picture aspects to each and every one of these I haven't talked about yet, and that will probably be by the third stream, because that's when we're going to go into the climate models and the fact that they don't work. So let's get into this real quick. So I'm not going to read this whole article, but just understand that this article is in the description. Very important. Basically says, actually, I'll read this part here. It says, the United States joined Saudi Arabia to derail a UN resolution that sought to improve the world's understanding of potential effects to lace the skies with sunlight reflecting aerosols or use carbon catching fans. The two countries were joined by Brazil in blocking the resolution at the UN Environmental Assembly conference in Kenya. Earlier this week, the measure asked the world's discuss-making body on the Environmental Commission of report outlining research and planning related to carbon dioxide removal and solar radiation management. This controversial effort are still in the planning stage and are not operational. Lie. I'm going to tell you now. The carbon engineering, and there's another one called CCSA. They're direct carbon capturing companies. They were contracted, I think it was $4.5 million in Silicon Valley alone so far, and numerous other states that have already started construction of this. And again, there are numerous fossil fuel companies that are running the CCS systems right now. It's very open. That for them to say that's nothing to worry about seems kind of disingenuous to me. But I wanted to show that article. Descriptions down in the chat. I think we have like one more thing to do. Let's see what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that's it for now. There was something in here important I wanted to get to. Oh, the list. Okay. So I'm going to jam through this list real quick. And again, I'm going to skip a lot. And you guys are going to see some things on this list that you're not going to agree with. And I don't agree with them either. Again, I got this list from a TED Talk. It made sense when the guy talked about it, but I will not touch some of these subjects because I don't know enough. When it comes to number one, refrigeration, that was kind of the same thing as the Montreal Protocol. Now they're trying to pass a little bit more stricter laws on these different type aerosols to make it a little safer. Wind turbines. These are solutions to this greenhouse gases and global warming situation. So wind turbines, obviously, that's solar, wind, use natural resources. Reduce food waste. This is kind of one I've actually heard quite a bit. And it kind of goes along with the next one, plant-rich diet. It doesn't say don't eat meat, just so you guys understand. It does say we should be eating more of a balanced diet, right? But this one is actually something I had to look into, and I didn't even realize this was actually an issue. So when crops are harvested, let's say they harvest 80% of the crops. I didn't realize this, but 40% of that never makes it to the market ever. Whether it be, falls out of a truck, rots, or doesn't get eaten at the store and has to be thrown away. That's a huge factor of this greenhouse gases. Because remember, if we're creating greenhouse gases, we want the value of that to balance, right? We want to get more out of it than the emissions we're producing. It doesn't do that though. If we're not getting all that food there, we're just creating CO2 for no reason. Let's see this next one. Tropical forests. That would be actually using the land for some of the methods of BIC, which would be letting plants capture. And then there's number 6, we're going to pass. 7 will pass. Solar farms. Obviously, there's a lot of solar farms going up right now. California actually has the largest solar farms right now. But again, this is why I really started looking into this stuff. I want you guys to think about this for a second. Solar radiation management blankets the sky with sulfates so that the radiation doesn't reach Earth, right? Global warming. And how is solar going to be effective, right? Got rooftop solar. We kind of already looked at that one on the list. What other ones on here I like? Number 15, afforestation. This one is a great one. I like this one a lot. Problem, timing. This is basically, imagine Death Valley. Well, they go in, they basically build a forest. Afforestation is the act of producing a forest or creating a forest where a forest was not. Great idea in a lot of situations to capturing the CO2 because plants do absorb it. But again, the timing it takes too long. Geothermal, great idea. Not everyone knows. I don't think enough people know enough. I don't think enough people live in areas where it's viable to use. Managed grazing, obviously nuclear. That's just talking better technology. Like I said, I was going to skip a lot on this list, and I did want to kind of keep it short. So let's just kind of go through a run through of what we're talking about. Okay, so like I was saying, guys, this stream right here was kind of giving you guys an introduction to everything I'm kind of working through. Again, not even close to everything. I don't want to put too much detail into it, so I'm purposely stopping myself. I'm going to, or let me just kind of get this real quick. I'll just rough blaze through what we just went over. So basically what we went over is the different methods of geoengineering. We went through basically I guess you would call it the method and examples of how carbon capture storage is done. So what I'm going to do is next stream I'm probably going to do this twice a week. The next stream I'm going to do will be covering, we're going to go into more of the insides of what's going on. I do want to get into the ethics of it. Next stream we'll do. And that is in the regards of who sprays it, who runs it. Some of you guys heard me talking last night in the chat. I've honestly come to this conclusion very recently, and I'm looking into it a little bit better. But I kind of almost see the one world government in this, and no, not like it is, but this, but you'll see, because governance is a huge problem. I mean, governance is probably the biggest issue they're going to have when it comes to comes to geoengineering. Period. So, guys, again. If you guys have any questions for the next 5 minutes, let me know. No matter what, I'm going to end this stream and then start a new one in 2:30. So there'll be some time. Or no. I think channel Q's on right now. So let me see. Pretty sure. If channel Q, if you're still here, does anyone know if she's going live or anything? If no one knows, let me go ahead and search it real quick because I'm not trying to step on her toes, and I think she was going to be going on with Riley, so I think everyone's pretty interested in that. I think I'm kind of interested in trying to get on that panel because who doesn't want to prove Riley's a retard? Okay, so she's not live yet. Maybe she's going live. I don't know. I thought she said Monday, so don't. I'm not sure if I'm going to go live. If she doesn't go live, I'll be live at 2:30. Otherwise, I'll wait. I have no problem doing that. Okay, so she is going to go live, guys. So once she gets going, leave here and then go there. Let's see. Okay, yeah, no worries. Yeah, so like I said, I'm still going to keep going. I got a little bit more to say, but it's once you start Q, I'll be over there. Yeah. In fact, yeah. As soon as you get that set up, I will. I'll actually put the link in here so that way, everyone knows when you're getting started up and going, and they can leave from here. But yeah, because again, everyone who's doesn't know what I'm talking about, Channel Q is going to go live and it's pretty soon, and she's going to have Anthony Riley on. Not sure if it's just a talk or a debate. I'm not sure, but that's going to be happening after this, so I'm not going to be going live at that. So yeah, but that it's I think it's 5. It's already 5 o'clock Eastern right now, so yeah. So like I said, this I know I'm still not as structured as I need to be with this, but every time I present this stuff, it'll be a little bit better, I promise. Especially once we start getting into this stuff, because like the stuff I'm talking about right now, I actually haven't like looked at in a while because I'm further into it. So it's good. I get to relearn it and remember some stuff. Anybody got questions? I was wrong, comments, and I mean anything that would about this, so you guys aren't left not knowing what the hell's I'm even talking about. Let's see. But until let me see. I think there was one in here I saw that I was gonna wait on. I don't see anything. Okay. Yes, Farmers Boy, we definitely need more of that. Okay. No. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, like I said, guys, trust me, you guys. I know you'll have questions by the next one because the next one is going to be a good one. What I'm going to do later on is I'm not 100% sure if anybody else is going live, Shawn Hawkins or Crash or anything. If I don't hear that they're going to go live, what I'm going to do is I'll go live again a little bit later on after Channel Q goes. Only mainly because I didn't really go live and I didn't have a panel today for this one. And then hey, if you want to sit on a panel while I'm doing this, I have no problem with that. It'll probably only be 1 or 2 people so that it can stay on topic and everything. But yeah, guys, I do appreciate you guys listening in on this. I know it's not the normal stream, but it is very important. And there's a lot more to go. I know it may have been a little bit boring, but at the most, I need you guys to understand that it's a very slow process to understand and get through. And I just don't want to overlap anybody that doesn't understand it, and then they just kind of meander from it. But yeah, there are definitely lines of red flags for me. Again, I did say, and I fully think that I am onto something, I guess you would say, when it comes to the one world government. In the governance of geoengineering will play a big factor in it, and you'll see what I mean. I'm not talking crazy nutter stuff, but it seems odd to me. Guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I'll see you guys over at Channel Q. Let me go ahead and see if she's started yet, and then that way we guys just all get the link here and you don't have to search for it or anything. I mean, hopefully you guys are all sub to her. All right. So if you guys are not, here is Channel Q's channel link. Make sure you guys like or go ahead and sub to her. Yeah, be better. And then, like I said, I don't think she has it set up yet. I'm about to look right now to see if she has the link or the live stream set up yet. Okay, so it's not set up, but yeah, go and subscribe to that link, and you guys will be fine. And then, yeah, I'll see you guys a little bit later on today. I know I'll see most of you guys later on in some chat or one or another. But hey, most of the time I'll be down in, debate, flat earth, and more server in Discord. It's a fun place. Come hang out and debate. It's fun. Or you can, I have a server myself, super laid back. And when you guys say laid back, if you do go to my Discord, the truth frontline, you'll see what I mean when I say laid back. There's no arguing there. It's just a few people just every once in a while go in there and just try to have discussions about different situations and, go back and forth. And it's very chill. It's a place I can go where it's very quiet and I don't have to really worry. So thank you guys. Check out those links. There's a bunch of links in the description of a lot of the people that, just frequent the panel. I got Seek and Find down there. Got some other people. I'm not looking at it right now. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Yeah, go and check out, you got Jose's, Debate Flat Earth and More, the YouTube channel. That's pretty cool. You got Baldy Cats, my boy Dreads, Question Everything. Check out Crash. Speaking of Crash, guys, Crash has a buddy named Jimmy. He's in the chat. He's a fun guy. So far, as of right now, we have a $35 pot. Jimmy will be taking pictures in a skirt, on a quad, with a lollipop. He's open to doing more. I don't know why, but apparently he likes Crash a lot. If we can get more money to it, we can, sky's the limits. In my comments, in my truth frontline at outlook.com mailbox, send me your ideas of what you want Jimmy to do. And we're going to figure out how much it's going to cost to get Jimmy to do something stupid. And hopefully do something fun. But as of right now, he's going to be in a skirt, on a quad, taking pictures for $35. Cheap little whore. With that said, guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for stopping in. Farmer's Boy, keep in mind, I wanted to have a conversation. I saw you in the chat. I know so you may have a little idea of all this stuff I'm talking about. And you may be good to have on the panel while I'm doing it to, bounce things off of and help me keep it flowing. But with that said, guys, I appreciate it. I'll see everyone in a little bit. See you over at Channel Q's.